To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on the agenda, number 3, is approval of minutes from last time. The government had a chance to review the minutes. Make a motion or a motion to make a motion. Second. Mr. Ross, and then Mr. Ross said. The next item is the approval of the order of agenda. Are there any?
Mr. Chairman, did we vote that motion?
Oh, you should do that. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Okay, opposed? Yeah. The order of agenda, would anyone like to add anything to the agenda? Then I accept the motion for the order of agenda. Second, Mr. Ross. And incidentally, I see Commissioner Hagan is on Zoom and all the other commissioners are present here in Missouri. Well, this motion is approved. The consent agenda. Is there?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah. What?
The order of agenda absence.
Yes. That is good.
okay.
The approval of the consent agenda. Are there any bills, employee status changes or overtime that you would like to pull for discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll take that one.
Commissioner Ross did. Second by Commissioner Ross. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll move on to Grand Forks Region EDC. They're here in the large group today, but great.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Engen and members of the Grand Forks County Commission. Thank you for having me this afternoon. Mr. Ford, thank you for arranging a presentation. So I want to start by thanking you for your tremendous support of the Grand Forks Region EDC and your partnership. I want to in particular thank Commissioner Engen, who served as the board of directors. So thank you for that, and Mr. Ford, who's on ex officio board member at the EDC. Before we begin, I want to introduce a few folks that are here with the organization that you alluded to, Mr. Chairman. John Onken, True North Equipment CEO, he's the EDC chair for this year. I think everyone in the world knows Becca Kruger. She's our director of workforce development. For a few who don't, introduced her. And then Kevin Hatcher is our manager of business development at the Economic Development Corporation. I'll go over our staffing at the EDC as well throughout the presentation, but one of them here in case you had any questions relative to their work portfolios or from a governance standpoint with our chairman. And Ms. Nelson, I understand that I just kind of give you the sign and we'll run through this. Very good. Wanted to give you a brief overview of the history of the organization. I don't know if we've done that. So it's been a little while since I've been here, so I apologize for that. I think it's interesting. Hopefully you do too. A little bit of how we're organized and our governance, and then the work that we do on some of the so this second slide, I guess, kind of just talks through the evolution of the Economic Development Corporation. So our predecessor organization that actually still exists today is the Grand Forks Development Foundation. That was created in 1967. And if you take a look at the mission, it was really to promote industrial concerns, so it was very much focused on manufacturing. As a matter of fact, the Grand Forks, City of Grand Forks had about 50% of the typical regional manufacturing jobs at that time. The leader said we need to do better in that area. So that was the major motivation for the Development Foundation. It was a city only, and it's really made land and other facilities available. So it was a passive organization that sort of sat back, and if somebody wanted to, an organization wanted to do something, sell land, if there was a building available, they would facilitate that. So in 1988 or leading up to 1988, the leadership in the community, which consists of business leaders, city and county leaders as well, felt that the community and the region needed a more progressive organization or proactive organization to develop opportunity. And so that organization was created, and a little bit of a change. So rather than just sit back and wait for land, it was to aid and assist and promote economic development. And the, I guess, geography of interest or focus was all of Grand Forks County. So again, the Development Foundation exists today, but all the work that we do is really done through the Economic Corporation. Next slide, please. Won't spend a lot of time on some of these slides. I'll try to get through as quickly as I can when we have a long agenda. Our mission is to expand economic opportunity for the Grand Forks region through industry growth and diversification. And I'm gonna highlight that a little bit later in the presentation. That's an important part of our mission. Next slide, please. Just want to quickly go over our board of directors. Orientation is a little, so Commissioner Egan there and Mayor Bertensky is on our board of directors. We have our county commission chair, his or her designee, and the mayor or his or her designee are automatic board appointees, but for our bylaws. And then you see the other members there, Michelle from his chair is with us here this afternoon. So a good cross section of leadership and industry representation across. Next slide, please. Our bylaws also allow us to, on an annual basis, appoint as ex officio officers, not voting, but very involved and very important in terms of the conversation and the strategies that we execute. Lead people within organizations that either directly support the work of the EDC or have similar goals. And you can see at the top of the list, you have the director of administration, Tom Ford. And then you have the folks that listed there, City of Grand Forks, Jobs Development Authority, Chamber of Commerce, Airport Authority, University of North Dakota, and Grand Forks Public Schools. One of the individuals on this board, on the ex officio list, told me one time that he really enjoys coming to our meetings because there's no other meeting in the community on a monthly basis where the leadership days of both organizations come together on a monthly basis to talk about how to move the community and the region forward. Next slide. And then I'm not going to run down these for you, but our advisory board is really comprised of individuals that have some expertise in the areas that we want to work and promote. Many of those are associated with strategic sectors that I'll cover just a little bit further down in the presentation. But you can get a good look at the cross section of individuals that convene 3 times a year. We run our strategy by them. We get really good advice and they give us an update on the industry so we can keep a finger on the pulse of that activity. Next slide, please. I'd like to give presentations in the past that talked about our structured collaboration within the county of Grand Forks. And I'll put that in the context of the Economic Development Corporation and how that impacts us. So first, I've already addressed that. The county commission chair, his or her designee, the mayor, his or her designee, are appointed as an EDC board members. And that is our connection to the voters of Grand Forks County. All the county commissioners are elected by all the citizens of Grand Forks County, and the mayor is the one position in the city that's elected by all the citizens of the county. So stay connected to the policies of those organizations through that representation. And I just walked through a little bit of our strategy in terms of having key people involved in important organizations as ex officios on the board of directors. The EDC board nominates non-city council members to the Growth Fund Committee. The Growth Fund is established by the City of Grand Forks. It's a job development authority. You've all heard that term. And there are 3 members of the city council as a result that are appointed to that board. But by their city code, the EDC nominates 4 members, and they're confirmed by the city council. As a matter of fact, they hopefully will confirm 3 members at their meeting this evening. And then the EDC board makes recommendations on projects and initiatives, again, with a county commissioner and the mayor or his or her designee on that board, and being connected to the citizens of the region through that discussion and those actions. Next slide, please. I want to go through our budget for you. I want to let you know, well, maybe I'll tell you a little bit later. Our budget's about a $1.1 million budget, just a little bit north of that. You see this is our attempt to kind of demonstrate the size of that investment. So Grand Forks County, in your last budget process, again, thank you for your support, approved $257,500 support for the EDC. City of Grand Forks also through the budgeting process approved $333,000. Little miscellaneous income of $54,000 through grants and interest income and that type of thing. But the majority of our investment comes from private business organizations, right around 150 million growing that. What I wanted to make mention that $495,000, that was based on a fundraising goal of $35,000. We're about $10,000 short of it yet, but we're still working on it. So I didn't want to be accused of embellishing. So we're going to reach that goal. We just aren't there yet. And this is what our budget for 2024 looks like. I want to make a point, and it's made at the bottom of that slide, And again, your investment, and we thank you for that, for every dollar that the county invests, we're able to leverage that and secure $3.39 from other sources. City, grants, and also, more importantly, the private business organizations. And so again, more than triple the investment that we've made. I think the leaders that created the organization, the EDC back in 1988 were wise in that, you know, if a city or a county were to try to take on this activity themselves, I think they'd have a hard time leveraging investment from the other taxing entity, political subdivision. I also think it would be very difficult to try to leverage additional investment from the private sector back to the city or the county to do that additional development work. So I think the leverage both from the county and the city is tremendous when we pull the private sector contribution. Next slide. I just wanted to give you a sense of how that has evolved. I took over as president and CEO. I've been with the EDC since 2006, joined as their vice president. And in 2007, when my previous boss and mentor retired, I was fortunate enough to be the president and CEO. This is sort of an evolution of our funding since that time. And this is what we do in our budget presentation. So this is a slide that just captured from that. So you can see the tremendously appreciated support from the city and the county in terms of incremental and allowing us to cover some of the costs of business that goes up that you all can experience in your daily lives and if you have businesses. But when it comes to funding key initiatives, if you can take a look on the right, that we're really focused on the private sector to really drive the investment of the city, of the Grand Forks region of the city. That investment by the private sector has funded cooler than I'll talk about that in a little bit, additional workforce personnel. And then in this year, we're going to be focusing more on site selector engagement and trying to be more effective and have a better platform from the folks that are looking to site large topics across the United States. Wanted to highlight, I did a little bit of math. Combined, the city and the county investment has gone up $39,000 over that time frame, and the private sector has increased by $190,000 over that same time frame. But that's nearly a 5-to-1 leverage in terms of that investment. Slide. Won't spend any time on this. Core operations, at the end of the day, we do business development and workforce development, and we are supporting sectors or supporting platforms of community and outreach and engagement, which is a fancy name for marketing, and then membership and management, which is again another fancy name for administration. Next slide, please. This is the EDC staff, probably pretty familiar with that, but of course, Commissioner Engen, Board Member Engen, and Chair Onken. As the EDC board, they govern from a financial and policy and strategy standpoint, the actions of the activities of the EDC. President CEO, that's me. Operations manager, I'll put names to the positions. If any of you know Bridget West, she's our operations manager. She does all the things that nobody else wants to do, and she does them really well. We have about a quarter-time finance coordinator that helps us with some of that work and partners with Brady Martins in doing our financial work. I've introduced Kevin as a business development manager, Becca as our director of workforce development, and Mark Molesky as a marketing communications manager. Brenna Mathiasen is a workforce development specialist, and we typically engage at least one, maybe two interns, and they're typically assigned to workforce and or marketing. So that is in a snapshot. We think we're a lean but effective organization. Next, please. At the end of the day, I think we've been referred to as a board an organization that facilitates connections, whether that's programmatic, financial, or research, or industry solving problems, or connections to leadership. And we engage with companies and try to assist and support their growth. And it's not our job to know everything, but it's our job to know the people that know all of this. So at the end of the day, we facilitate connections. Absolutely. When I talked earlier about in our mission in terms of industry growth and diversification, this is where I want to sort of drive what the focus of the EDC is. And we work, and almost all of our work from a business development standpoint is focused on the primary sector. And primary sector companies have two things in common. Number one, they make something here. It can be, a large wind turbine blade that's easy to touch and feel. It could be software, it could be a number of things, but something is created either through manual automation, through mind power in the Grand Forks region and Grand Forks County. And the other key important part of that definition is that product is sold outside of the trading entity. So those resources ultimately come back to the community, to the region, to the county to help facilitate trading and greater growth. I see we have the PDF up there. So This is where I get to say that Mark Malitsky, our marketing manager, put a lot of really cool and neat automation in this. And he's gonna be really disappointed that he didn't get to see all the whiz bang here, but I'll do my best to explain what that automation was gonna be. To highlight the importance of the primary sector, we selected the frozen vegetable manufacturing to highlight the importance of that. And we all know there's a dominant player in this industry, but there's more than this, the one dominant player in the industry. So it's not totally inclusive of that one company that you're all thinking of right now. Next slide. So, companies involved in frozen vegetable manufacturing manufacture frozen food products in Grand Forks. Grand Forks County. Those products are then distributed, sold all across the United States, and in the case of the dominant player, all across the world. Logistically, they serve frozen products come in, frozen products go all over the world. Next slide. And from the contribution of those resources, and this is when those dollar signs would be jumping all to wages and taxes and purchases, again, Mark would be disappointed. But the resources ultimately come back to the community, and companies involved in frozen vegetable manufacturing pay wages, and they pay taxes, and they make purchases from local companies, local procurements. That could be any number of things. That could be construction services, that can be auditing service from Brady Marts, that could be nuts and bolts and screws, it could be anything that is significant. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Next slide, please. So in terms of this particular industry, frozen vegetable manufacturing, there are 341 direct jobs, people that are doing that work. But when you take a look at economic modeling, and this is done through LifeCast, was an economic development modeling organization, we engage Praxis to do this work and to help us understand what the impact of this industry was. Those 341 direct jobs support 760 indirect and induced jobs in the community, and an average salary of $63,000. That's $45 million worth of payroll that's contributed to the region as a result of that industry. And as a result of that industry, $3.7 million is paid towards local, state, and federal taxes. I don't have the breakdown of how much that is in the individual categories, but that's taxes that are paid by the companies that provide that part of the service. So this is why we focus on the primary sector. It brings new resources into the community. All businesses are important. We support and do what we can to support all, but when it comes time to lean in and support a particular sector, this is where we focus our efforts. Next slide. Want to highlight, we can't do everything, and if there's an opportunity in front of us in the primary sector, we certainly work it. But in terms of proactive work, we work in 6 targeted sectors. The 2 on the left are what I would call historical or legacy sectors. Every business that makes all the sense in the world, and we keep talking about big projects in that sector. And manufacturing, really strong growth even through the pandemic for manufacturing. Stabilized a bit now, but a really good base of manufacturing. And the last 4 sectors are sort of leading edge sectors. UAS, we won't know about that. So unmanned and autonomous systems, we've changed the definition of a little bit to represent all the technology that supports that industry, technology, biomedical, and energy. Those last 4 are really tethered to, I would say, institutions of higher education, and in particular, the University of North Dakota, in terms of the talent that they develop, in terms of their ability to drive those industries through research, problem solving, and the like. So those are the areas in which Kevin focuses his effort to try to grow and diversify the economy. So this is supposed to be a funnel, but it didn't fit on a page, so you kind of can hopefully just take a look and put that right piece down to the left. But this is Mark just completed a robust and impressive marketing plan for the Economic Development Corporation. And this is really just a bird's eye view of kind of how we do our work. And it really starts at the top in terms of how opportunities are developed, and that's really what I wanted to focus on briefly. So we get introduced to opportunity through a number of different ways. EDC staff would curate the interest, and really that comes from a program we call Business Retention and Expansion, where Mark and Kevin and Becca will both go out to businesses local that we know that have been our clients over the years, talk about the opportunities and challenges that they have, workforce being the number 1 challenge, no secret, and trying to understand what they're trying to pursue, and then hopefully bring some things to the table that can help them do what they want to do quicker, more cost effectively, that type of thing, but a partner in trying to grow our region. They come from referrals from companies that we connect with on a regular basis. Hey, we do a lot of work with this company, you should approach them, and that has been successful in the past. Grand Forks Awareness Marketing, and that comes directly from our efforts, and Mark is leading those efforts, our website. And then site selectors, as I mentioned earlier, we're beefing up our capabilities in that area and trying to get on the radar, for lack of a better way to describe it, of larger siting companies that are looking to find a home, in particular for large economic development projects. The rest of that funnel just really talks about how we go ahead and how we go through and do our work. Sometimes, and many times isn't quite as, systematic as that. Sometimes they'll go down and pop back up. Sometimes they'll make a visit before they get a proposal, but I think you get the idea in terms of how we do the work that we do on the Curry Day. Last point I'll make, the last point of the funnel is that EDC provides ongoing support. When we get the company here, we don't walk away and say, job done. We're an ongoing partner with companies that are this region primary sector companies. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about what we think is the impact of that we do along with our partners, many of our partners. In terms of job growth, the primary sector, our clients, I should say, not exclusively all primary sector companies, but the companies we work with over the last 10 years. There's 8,154 jobs. That's a gain of 1,670. So it's a 26% growth over the 10-year period of time. Wage growth has gone from almost 46,000 to over 67,000. Gain of 21,000. So that's 46% growth. When you add more jobs, when you add more payroll, you get an 84% increase in direct payroll contributions in the region. So that EDC client companies, primary sector companies, contribute 548, nearly $550 million in direct payroll contributions in the region. Growth over the last decade. And then in terms of, you take a look at that funnel, next slide, please. In terms of what we're working on, this is our project pipeline, and so these are projects that we feel have a good chance of being successful. And we have a lot of things we chase. I guess I'll put it in that regard, but we have to have some sense that these things will be successful if we put them on this board. And so right now we're actively working 24 projects that all came to fruition. They're not going to all come to fruition. I'm saying that right now, but if they all did, that would be $931 million with capital investments that occurred, meaning 809 jobs that we were on the board, and they were actively right now. We visit with on a bi-weekly basis to understand what's next, how can we keep it, how can we get it to the next step, how can we get it to the next step, and ultimately bring it to the board. Next slide, please. Getting close to wrapping up, in terms of workforce development, this is business development and workforce development. They're right up at the top in terms of priorities. Workforce development really has become business development. When we talk to companies, what's your primary challenge? Workforce. There's a lot of things that work here. Just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that we do and led by Becca, who's been with the EDC about 6 years now, maybe a little bit more than that. Sure, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. Career Impact Academy, we all know about that, and we're thrilled to break ground later this past fall. I want to thank the County Commission for your support of that, and the $400,000 investment in that, which was really key. We were ultimately successful. A team of individuals that really leaned into this to raise $11 million locally, which ultimately, I have to do some math in my head. We initially raised $10 million from the state. We got another 3, and then we got another bump for dollars that were not used for something else at the end of the year. So maybe around $14 million. Don't hold me to that, but anyway, that local investment leverage, that kind of investment from the state, and I think for your investment is extremely important. Thanks. Northern Valley Expo, we've been holding this event for nearly a decade. This is an event that just didn't exist. Right now, our last event we had this last year, 2,100 sophomores attended from 52. You asked me today, I forgot to write it down. 52 school districts from Northeast North Dakota, Northwest Minnesota. All the event is focused on exposing students, high school students, to growing tourism in the region with an attempt to keep them here after they graduate and pursue further education within that event. And then Grand Forks CPE department. Outside of those 2 programs, and those are really important, we have a strong relationship with them. And they have taken a really important step forward in hiring, I think they're called resource officers, but regardless of the title, they're individuals that work with students and try to connect them to industry and town. So just adding a little bit more value to the high school student, Grand Forks region corporate opportunity. In terms of connecting with post-secondary, Intern Grand Forks and Operation Intern, those are two very similar programs. Intern Grand Forks is local and Operation Intern is a state of North Dakota. That whole program and our local piece is administered by Becca in partnership with the University of North Dakota. Supports placing interns at local companies. There's two focuses. One of them is companies that are early stage, so 5 years or less. Unless that changed, I know they're going through some strategic planning. Or internships that have been historically hard to place in Grand Forks. So typically those interns have gone to Minneapolis to pursue those opportunities. Financial advising and financial analyst is an example of that. And what we've done through this program is to leverage our relationships with the business community, fancy term for BEG, companies that have those interns at the businesses so we can keep the students here and expose them to companies and opportunities in Grand Forks. We've got UND and Northland listed generally at the bottom, and we have strong partnership with them. Beyond the programs, we do everything we can to connect students with business opportunities at both institutions of higher education. Next, please. Workforce development in terms of recruitment and retention. I think you've all heard of and may hopefully seen, way cooler than you think. I'm going to tell you a really short story in just a second. That's all focused on amplifying an employer's message when they're communicating with someone who's not from them. I would say Altru tells them all the reasons why they want to work for Altru. Cooler than you think is all the reasons why they want to consider moving to the Grand Forks region. So that's a partnership program for companies who want to use it. It's open source. You don't have to be an EDC client or member to use it. You can just have access to what's out there. Greater Grand Forks Young Professionals. It was 15 years ago that they engaged a consultant named Rebecca Ryan through Next Generation Consulting, who walked them through a strategic planning process that ultimately got them to hire their first executive director. I think it was an important sort of trajectory changing moment in their history as well as the history of our region. Finding a good life, I'm going to jump around a little bit. That's really the state program to highlight the benefits of living in North Dakota. So Becca is an ambassador when it comes to that program. People who come to that portal and are interested in opportunities in Grand Forks, they connect with Becca, doing a great job. And then Workforce Development Council. Becca is designated and appointed by Governor Bergen to serve on the state's Workforce Development Council, developing workforce strategies across the state and making sure that the needs of Grand Forks Town and the Grand Forks region are being captured. Next slide, I only have a few more. In terms of impact of our workforce work, and when I say our, I mean there's a lot of organizations. Oh, got to go back because I forgot my story. Way cooler than you think. Thank you. So this is a program that was created really thinking about Grand Sky. So you recall 10 or 12 years ago, whenever Northrop Grumman said, hey, we're going to plant our flag out here and we're going to hire 100 people. And they said, we're going to, that 100 people is going to be broken down. We're going to hire 50 people locally. And that came from UND graduates, Northland graduates, retirees from the Air Force Base, and retirees from the Air National Guard and Fargo. Maybe they sold UND, I know that they did. But 50 people they were going to recruit from other locations across the country, Northrop Grumman locations. There was activity in Marble, Florida, Yuma, Arizona, and San Diego, California. That one day were there, and the next day they were in Grand Forks. But those people didn't need to come to Grand Forks. They could have asked to be reassigned. It's a different responsibility of their own locations. They could have walked across the street and probably found a job at the other, DoD contractor. So they said, we need your help. We can tell them all the reasons why we want to do all the cool things here and keep doing what you're doing. But we don't have the ability to market Grand Forks because we just got it for ourselves. So we need to help us. So what we did at that time is we convened the leaders of 6 organizations, the county and the city and the EDC and the chamber, Visit Grand Forks and UND. We all came together and thought, hey, we need to develop something like this. We didn't know it was going to be called Cooler. And so we thought we could work on this thing. But then we said, wait a minute, the last thing we want to do is create something nobody wants. So we convened about a dozen or so. I'll keep using that term or that number. It's the senior HR professionals from across the region, some of the larger organizations. And they said, do we need something to highlight Grand Forks that you can share with people outside the region? They said, yes. And they said, well, as long as you said yes, will you stay with us and help us build it? And the council said yes. So those public organizations that I mentioned, each invested $10,000 for 2 years, so a total $20,000 investment. We said to each one of those organizations that you need your support on a short-term basis. If this has value, the private sector is going to have to take it over. And so we were thrilled. Number one, we were true to our word. We didn't come back and ask for additional resources for that. And number two, we were thrilled that EDC membership to their membership contributions increased their investment to $50,000 1 year, over the next to help sustain and to build forward. So it still operates today after that, conversation that it went 8 years for, well, more, it's 6 years ago, so it still operated. So that's my story. So very much Northrop Grumman, very much Grand Sky. In terms of motivation and creating it, we kind of lose sight of that today because it's so broad based. I want to share that with you. Next slide. In terms of impact, we've seen growth in the county. You see the numbers there. One of the things that I like to talk about, and for many, many years, and we started looking at workforce not too long after joining the EDC in 2006. When you took a look at how Grand Forks and Grand Forks County compares to a typical region, we had high concentrations of 15 to 19 and 19 to 24-year-olds, UND's influence on that. You'd have to see and understand. But then it dropped. So we had 80% in the next 5 years and 70% in the next 5 years. And so what it said to us, a lot of people were coming here and a lot of people were leaving, and pretty quickly for opportunities elsewhere. So through the work of all that's laid out, a number of partners that I haven't mentioned, a lot of other things that I haven't mentioned, we've seen a growth of young professionals 25 to 39. 27% over the last 12 years. That's when we started tracking this, so we can keep that base statement. And that's compared to a national rate of 11%. So we're more than doubling the success of the nation when it comes to growing the YP demographic. And when you grow that demographic, you have a tendency to grow the school-age children demographic. So we've seen growth there of 11% compared to a national average at 2%. Couple slides. We also get involved in other conversations, in many cases supporting, sometimes leading, but in most cases supporting an air service, space retention. Thank you for the county's leadership there. Childcare, housing, entrepreneurship, community and vibrancy. Next slide. And in terms of community and regional vibrancy, one project that we completed and will launch this week is our rural community cold health service. So Becca wrote a grant to the state of North Dakota, was successful. And through her efforts and the resources provided by that grant, we were able to shoot video footage in 5 Grand Forks County communities, not the city of Grand Forks, but 5 rural communities that highlighted exciting things to do in those communities. We market that on Cooler, or we will, and those communities can use that and market that on our website. So those communities were Gilby, Emerito, Thompson, North, and Larmore, and I'm sure you had something to do with that. And thanks for the slide.
Becca had everything.
Okay, great.
Told me what to do.
All right, so maybe taking a little bit more time than you like, but sorry about that. I just want to conclude by saying we're privileged to do the work that we do to support you all and support the growth of the community and our partners. So I want to thank you for your time and attention. And then one last time, thank you for your support. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Hagan? No? I've got a couple of updates, Keith, if you wouldn't mind. The Career Impact Academy, can you tell us the status of how that's proceeding at this point?
Yeah, the idea that it will open up for the school year of 2020.
Okay.
So I imagine there'll be substantial completion before that, and to be honest with you, I'm not in every construction meeting and get updates, but that's been the timeline all along. We of course wanted to break ground earlier than that. I think the community was hopeful of that, but the delay of funding from the state, which really was a delay on the federal side. And then cost escalation and sort of navigating that whole process caused a little bit of it, but we're really excited. Some of the next work that will begin, each one of the program areas that are supported at the Career Impact Academy needs to have an industry advisory board to make sure that it's meeting the needs of local industry. And so work will be done between now and open to make sure those industry boards are populated and they are advising the curriculum that's associated with those particular tracks.
Okay, thank you. I've got another question about the interns. I know that program has been growing and placing interns in lots of different places. Can you give us a percentage of people who at that age were leaving before, but maybe you're hanging on to now, but the young professionals and the internships and so on? Is that increasing substantially?
Yeah, we're actually going to have a intern Grand Forks funding launch on February 1st, so you're all welcome to come attend. And so we're doing a study and look back of 5 years and how many of those interns have stayed in the region. So I will get those numbers to you.
Your thoughts?
On that?
Oh, yeah, but you had some other thoughts to add.
Oh, completed the presentation. I do know that we've had some good anecdotal success in terms of students that are going through the internship program, taking their first job in Grand Forks. It's really hard to cut people long term. They don't let us RFID pay them. So it's hard to trying to find ways to do a better job of through alumni networks and different things to try to understand where they are. There was a recent cohort that 80% of the folks that went through that was a single cohort, so I'm not trying to apply this to the whole program. Or 80% of the folks that went through that program took the first job at Grand Forks. So we hope it's having that impact when you take a look at all the data. But we are again getting good response. There's demand for the program, which means companies are very interested in it. I personally think that, you know, one of the best ways for companies to grow and grow their talent is connections with internships and connections with their institutions of higher education, getting in there, you know, doing class projects, being introduced to the students, giving them an internship, and it's a way to try each other out and then hopefully take that first step.
Anyone else, would you see want to say anything? You know,
Question, are all of your meetings open to the public?
Yes, they are.
So someone can just show up at your monthly meeting and attend? Okay, thank you.
other questions, Alex?
Yeah, you had on there about the wage increase from 2012 to 2022. Do you have a breakdown somewhere as to how much per year that the wages went up over that 10-year period? Because it's kind of a false number, because everybody knows wages went up when COVID hit in the last 4 years of your 10-year survey. So 40% of your survey is where the big jump was taken, not directly through the EDC. So I was wondering if you had it broke down each year as to what the income was.
I don't have it with me. I'm sure that as we prepare the information in terms of growth, we take a look at annual numbers, but I don't have that with you.
Because it's kind of a false number if you don't know the backside. Wages went up a lot in the last 4 years with COVID.
Sure.
I think, sir,
Thank you.
you would contact EDC.
Yep.
With a written request that they would
Good.
get that for you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is county planner. But, Mr. Meg, I'm not able to be here today. Skip item 7. I mean, vote to 8, public health. Come to the commissioners, I don't, Mr. Hagan doesn't have it, so he's not here. See, we have copies of joint powers agreement with city and the county on your desk. And I've asked Faith Attorney Swanson to just give us a brief overview of what the joint powers agreement is about.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as Commissioner Angan had indicated, he provided a copy of the joint powers agreement. For public health services between the city of Grand Forks and the county of Grand Forks. You'll see on page 2 and 3, the responsibilities of each entity are outlined. Specifically, the city of Grand Forks has the responsibility to provide the public health services, including administration, environmental health, nursing and nutrition services, and enforce any applicable environmental health resolution ordinances or statutes. The county's responsibilities are outlined in subparagraph B on page 3, which in short is to designate one county commissioner to serve on the Board of Health, which has been done. Approve an annual budget for the county allocation to the health department, and pay that on a monthly basis, the approved budget for public health services. And then also confirm the appointment of a Grand Forks health officer. Or a city and the county health officer. So you'll notice in reviewing this, the bulk of the services fall within the city's purview. And consistent with this agreement, as many of us are aware, the department itself, even though it's housed in the county office building, it is a city department. The employees are employed by the city of Grand Forks and not the county of Grand Forks. So, pursuant to this agreement, the county has very little role essentially to provide the financial backing so that they can provide their services beyond the city limits of the county, or excuse me, beyond the city limits of the city and into the county. And then also the appointments of those officials as well. And I'm available to answer any questions if anyone has as well.
Sir. Good.
Ma'am, that's an agreement and not a contract, is that correct? An MOU and MOA, this is a contract, yes?
The word agreement is on the front page, but a contract is an agreement, sir.
Right, but there's a different way to run a contract and agreement. But with that said, is there a number that is expected, a cost share number in that agreement between the county and the city? And then could I get a copy of that document?
Yeah, you can have my copy. I have a digital copy as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
You can take mine. Oh, that's got it. All right, at this point, we will turn it over to the health officials. For your presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Engen and members of the commission. My name is Tess Baum, the Director of Public Health. We appreciate the invitation to review our service program. I'll turn it over to Michael Dulitz here. He is our subject matter expert as it relates to this topic. He's also had direct client interactions to this program. I'll let him do his presentation, and then I'll summarize some of the national data that we have to support this program and take any questions. That make sense?
So as Tess said, Commissioner Engen and members of the commission, I'm Michael Dulitz, I'm the opioid response coordinator at Grand Forks Public Health. By background, I'm a paramedic, so I've been a paramedic since a little over 12 years now. And then I also have a master's degree in public health from UND, and we're here to talk about the ABC Project Service Program. Next slide. So first, we're going to do a overview of what harm reduction is as a little bit of education. We'll go over the community data as it pertains to our program, kind of the primary metrics that we use to measure the progress that we're making. We'll go over our program data specifically. We'll do a quick overview of the supplies, and then we'll finish up with a couple of participant stories. Next slide. So starting out with hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is a viral infection that primarily affects the liver. It's caused by the hepatitis C virus and is typically spread through contact with infected blood. Hepatitis C can lead to both acute and chronic liver disease and may not cause noticeable symptoms in early stages. Over time, untreated chronic hepatitis C can lead to serious liver problems, including cirrhosis and liver cancer. Fortunately, over the past 10 years, very effective antiviral medications have been created to treat hepatitis C and can cure the infection in many cases. As a bloodborne disease, hepatitis C can survive for a very long time, up to 60 days, in the leftover blood found in a syringe like the one in the figure. This presents an easy transmission source among people who inject drugs that do not have access to injecting equipment. The hepatitis C virus can also live on surfaces for a prolonged period of time, including inside supplies and things like that are used in injection drug use, meaning transmissible contact can happen in multiple ways. Compared to HIV, hepatitis C has a multifold higher ability to transmit via injection drug use. The virus that causes HIV can only live outside of the body for a matter of minutes versus the hepatitis C virus, which can live for days. So the combination of the lack of symptoms with hepatitis C with chronic infection means that it can spread undetected for many years. Unfortunately, restrictions on syringe access have fueled this unnecessary endemic among people who inject drugs. While no one wants to be viewed as enabling drug use, restrictions on syringe access have instead enabled the hepatitis C virus to establish and transmit among people who use drugs, creating a larger risk for the entire population. Criminalization of syringes reduces the chances that people who use drugs use clean injecting equipment for every injection and disposes of those syringes properly. Injecting substances requires only a syringe, a substance, and a liquid source. These supplies can be used among multiple people. Injecting substances more safely, though, requires multiple syringes, sharps containers, cookers, sterile water, a big bag like this, full of supplies. And so that increases your risk of discovery, and individuals are less likely to properly dispose of those items if there is concern of prosecution. Slide. So looking at hepatitis C in North Dakota. The charts here illustrate the incidence of newly diagnosed chronic hepatitis C cases in North Dakota as a whole since the year 2000. With hepatitis C being a chronic illness in most individuals, there's a lag between an individual contracting hepatitis C, identifying that they are infected with hepatitis C, having any symptoms related to hepatitis C. And this lag means that many individuals do not know their hepatitis C status and are potentially infectious without knowing that they have hepatitis C. And this also leads to us not having a really good picture of how many people actually have hepatitis C in North Dakota. In earlier years, there were a considerable number of diagnoses in the baby boomer generation. So before hepatitis C was known to be an infectious disease, it spread pretty widely, particularly in the baby boomer generation. Now that it's more well understood, we got a lot of people in that generation treated, but it still remains spreading in the younger population. The state did a study of individuals newly diagnosed with hepatitis C in 2017. And they found that upwards of 75% of the cases were attributed to injection drug use itself. So the availability and reduced prices of hepatitis C treatment, the availability of syringe services in North Dakota, and some policy changes by the state supporting aggressive treatment of hepatitis C means that we have a really good opportunity to address this primary risk factor and reduce the spread. Next slide. So understanding harm reduction. So to address the prevalence of hepatitis C in North Dakota, many health departments have taken a harm reduction approach. Harm reduction is about increasing safety. It's a strategy for health and community care that emphasizes health over harm. This approach does not ignore the risks associated with certain behaviors, nor does it condone them. Instead, it aims to reduce the negative consequences. Imagine a friend who forgets to wear a helmet when riding a bike. You know that riding a bike isn't bad, but hitting your head can be dangerous. So you remind them to wear a helmet. You may refer them to an organization like All Shoot Safe Kids, which gets resources from the community to buy people helmets, or you may even give them one. That all is harm reduction. You're not stopping the biking, you're just making it safer. So in the same way, harm reduction in public health might mean giving out clean needles to people who use drugs. Why? Because it can prevent diseases like HIV and hepatitis C. It doesn't mean that we're saying it's good to use drugs, but if someone is going to use, we want them to be as safe as possible. Next slide. Harm reduction is based on the stages of change model, which helps us understand that how people decide to make a change, whether it's improving health behaviors such as quitting smoking, or more complex changes like overcoming substance use disorders. Changes like a journey with steps, like deciding to train for long distance running. Think of personal change as the process of training for a long distance run. Initially, there's no intention to train, which is the not ready stage, but then you start to see the benefits of being healthy and decide to prepare for a local 5K. This is getting ready. You become ready when you commit to a training schedule and start following it. The action phase is when you're actually actively training.
Can I stop you for a sec? I'm sorry, I can't get by the fact you compare a child riding a bike without a helmet to intravenous drug use. Quite frankly, I'm speechless. And continue on. I just had to say that.
Going back, the action phase is when you're actively training, waking up early, running regularly, and watching your progress as the race day approaches. Keeping up involves maintaining your training even when the race is over, making running a part of your routine to stay healthy. Sometimes life gets in the way. You may miss a day, fall out of the routine, which can feel like a setback, but just like a runner, you can always lace up your sneakers and hit the pavement again, starting a new training cycle. In harm reduction, we apply these stages to understand where a person might be in the journey with substance use. Our goal is not to force the run on them, but to offer and encourage the behavior change. We meet individuals where they're at in the readiness to change, offering, for instance, clean syringes, healthcare services, treatment referrals, addiction treatment, and other support that aligns with their current stage. It's about ensuring safety while they contemplate and move through these stages of change. Harm reduction services also offer non-judgmental touch point during relapses, encouraging people to begin the cycle again with new knowledge and new strategies. Next slide. Likewise, when we talk about drug use, it's not just a single experience, it's a spectrum ranging from total avoidance to severe disorder. As you can see in the upper right corner, think of it like ice fishing. Some choose to not fish at all, while others choose to take different levels of risk. Avoiding drug use is like staying on shore and waiting for June. It's the choice to not engage in drug use and thereby avoiding the associated risks entirely. Chaotic drug use can be compared to ice fishing with early unpredictable November ice. This level of drug use is unpredictable and can lead to dangerous situations, not just for the individual, but for those around them. It's a precarious balance where the ice could crack at any moment, leading to potential harm, not just for the person ice fishing, but for the rescuers, community, and family. Chaotic drug use is like ice fishing in January, when the ice is thicker and more stable. The risks are still present, but they're reduced compared to early winter. This represents a pattern of drug use that is less likely to result in immediate harm or significant disruption to one's life or community. It's not without risk, but the chances of falling through the ice, for instance, are much lower. So likewise, we try to navigate a delicate balance, recognizing that there's some activities that are legal, like ice fishing, they can become perilous in certain conditions. Similarly, with drug use, the distinction between legal and illegal doesn't remove inherent risks. Not everyone uses drugs in the same way. Some people's use is chaotic and dangerous, like I talked about in the last slide, while others is less so. But what's concerning is that many people who could benefit from treatment aren't getting it. In fact, according to the National Institutes of Health, out of every 10 people with a drug problem, only one person gets the help that is indicated. Imagine these 10 people as water in a bathtub. They're all in there together, but will leave the bathtub in different ways. Some will overcome their drug use, some will tragically pass away, others will just stop fitting the definition of having a drug problem. Often changes in their lives will help them move away from chaotic use without any formal help. Maybe their circumstances change or they find personal strategies that work. But even if they stop using drugs in a risky way, they're still facing health risks like hepatitis C. By understanding this, we can create better pathways for support and care. Not everyone with problematic drug use will need care. Not everyone who needs care will get care. And not everyone will get care when they're ready. Yet we still have a vested interest in making sure individuals taking steps to reduce that risk. Now moving over to the APC Project Syringe Service Program. Our program started in 2019 with 3 major goals, and those goals have stayed constant throughout the program's existence. Our first goal is to reduce the transmission of HIV and hepatitis C through induction drug use. Our second goal is to reduce the morbidity and mortality from opioid overdose in the community. And our third goal is to provide connections and resources to promote positive health behaviors, reduce substance use, and promote recovery. Next slide. Looking at our primary measures based off of these goals. So this was looking at our first goal, which was to reduce the transmission of HIV and hepatitis C. We've seen a pretty significant increase since the program started in 2019, with our hepatitis C rate nearly or dropping by over half since the program has started. Next slide. Likewise, looking at our goal to reduce morbidity and mortality from opioid overdose in the community. Grand Forks has been fortunate compared to the national average to actually see a reduction in opioid overdoses in communities, particularly opioid overdoses that are reaching the hospital. So according to the data that we're getting from Ultra Health System, we're actually at an 8-year low in the number of overdoses reaching the hospital or being admitted into the emergency department. Next slide. Likewise, again, looking at the reducing the morbidity and mortality from opioid overdose. Our police department has reported a positive trend as well. In 2021, we saw a significant impact in the community from the introduction of illicit pressed fentanyl pills, which caused a significant increase in opioid overdose fatalities. Fortunately, in contrary to what the national average is, where we're now at over 100,000 people dying every year from opioid overdose, we've been seeing our numbers decrease, and it looks like this year will end with 4 opioid overdose fatalities in the community, which is half of what it was in 2020. Next slide. So our syringe service program is located in the Spectra Health Building. We are located in the Spectra Health Building because of the opportunities for vertical integration. For instance, an individual who is a addiction counselor here, is in the audience, and is a common referral source for us for that program. Since the program started, we've served 272 people, so not a ton of people. But what we do see is that we see a really good turning over of individuals. So at any given time, we're serving an average of 30 people per month and 45 visits per month. Our client base is primarily permanently housed. The most common substances of use are methamphetamine, followed by opioids. And 14% of our population reports having a history of hepatitis C. Next slide. Going to that third goal, you can click twice. And once more. That third goal of providing connections to promote positive health behaviors. Our program does provide a significant number of conversations with individuals and serves as a really good touch point for individuals to have conversations about reducing substance use, getting better healthcare services, addressing behavioral health, and other factors which I didn't list here, such as housing, employment, things like that, to reduce the community impact from their situations. One important thing to note is that our syringe service program is a really good touch point for getting naloxone into the community. And I think that is one of the reasons why we've seen such a reduction in opioid overdoses, especially opioid overdose fatalities, with over 500 kits being provided over the past 2 years. Next slide. Now going over the supplies that we provide, this will give you an idea. I went through and looked at some of the most common supplies that we give out. Came up with an idea of what the cost of those look like. These aren't necessarily given out, you know, we don't hand a bag like this to every single person. We provide supplies based off of what their requested need is and their individual situation is. So we operate on a 1-for-1 plus model, which means an individual on their first visit will get 20 syringes. They're expected to bring those 20 syringes back. And if they do so, an individual will get 10 more than what they previously brought back. If they don't bring anything back, then they go back to starting at 10. Individuals also receive a variety of supplies which we'll go through. First one up there is syringes. So we provide.
Use that table, please.
Sure. So we provide a variety of syringe options for individuals, but the most common are insulin style syringes. We provide sharps containers. So this is a pocket sized sharps container. This is a quart size, and then we also provide a gallon size. Cookers. We provide cookers to individuals. The reason why we provide cookers to individuals is if a group of people are injecting drugs and they are reusing a syringe, this can serve as a vector for the transmission of hepatitis C, because hepatitis C can live on surfaces. So that's why we provide these.
Excuse me for a second. Mark, could you close that blind? It's like, right, the sun. Thank you. Sorry. I can't see anything doing. Do it when it's done.
Narcan nasal spray, this we try and provide to everybody who comes to the program, at least one kit to have it available. Particularly as we have concerns about the adulteration of the methamphetamine supply, but it is something that we provide. Likewise, let's see, water ampules. So water ampules, sterile water is a good way of reducing the risk of harmful effects of like endocarditis related to injection drug use. Bacteria in your bloodstream entering into your bloodstream can cause endocarditis, which can cost upwards of $100,000 to treat if it ends up in your heart. Adhesive bandages, this is one of those things that are really affordable for us to provide to individuals and can reduce the spread of blood. Antibiotic ointment, reducing the impacts of injection drug use or the harms of injection drug use. Antibiotic ointment can prevent infections, can prevent an individual from being unable to use an arm when they're injecting, and so reducing infections is a harm reduction strategy. Let's see, we are at test strips, so we provide fentanyl test strips and xylazine test strips. So fentanyl and xylazine are adulterants in the drug supply. Some people choose to buy fentanyl and they know that it's fentanyl. What we also see is a lot of stuff in the drug supply that is adulterated with fentanyl. Since it is it takes such a small dose of it to provide an impact to somebody. It's not uncommon for it to be, the residue can get into like methamphetamine supplies and things like that. So people testing their drugs can be a good strategy to prevent overdose. Likewise, xylazine is an adulterant in the opioid supply as well. So it's more common on the coast. We've been watching for it in Grand Forks. It's hit Minot, but fortunately we haven't seen much impact here. So xylazine is a sedative primarily used in veterinary medicine. And in humans, the reason why they don't use it in humans is it can cause really nasty like skin infections and things like that. And so we don't want, if we can avoid individuals having harm from xylazine in the drug supply, that can save us a lot of community resources as far as wounds and things of that nature. Condoms, so our health department has given out condoms for probably 40 years now, and so it's just another touch point for us to provide things like condoms for individuals who want them. And then resources, so we provide a variety of resources to individuals coming to our program. For instance, everybody receives a card with local addiction care resources, as well as how to use naloxone. Tips for reducing infections, for instance. A guide on PrEP, which is a way for people to reduce the chance that they contract HIV. And then hepatitis C basics, so we want people to reduce the risk of hepatitis C with their injection use as well. So that's some of the information that we provide to individuals, and then obviously a bag as well. Next slide.
What was the cost, sir? Sorry.
You can go back to the last slide. For the cost of the supplies, so in this example, it costs us about $21.36. Of those funds, private entities, so we were unable to use any federal or state funds for any type of injecting equipment. And likewise, we extend that to county or city funds. This program does not use any county funds, does not use any city funds in the operation or state funds. It's federal funds for the actual for the staff time plus the supplies like sharps containers, and for anything used in injecting, we have private funding for that. Currently that's through the Otto Bremer Trust, and that covers the supplies used for injecting.
Can you define injecting, sir? Would that include the cooker and the tourniquet?
Correct.
So that'd be part of the injected port?
Correct. Next slide. So to finish up, I just wanted to go over two participant stories that I think illustrate some of the challenges and successes that we've seen with this program. These names are anonymized and the same like with the pictures. So Nicole was a 44-year-old who had been coming to our program for over a year. She had been in active use since her early 30s and had shared with us, as she developed trust with us over time, that her use became significantly worse related to significant trauma that she had in her life with a loved one dying in front of her. She had been using methamphetamine, and that was the only substance that she used. And she actually came to us almost weekly for about a year and a half. So she had over 60 visits total. Those first 59 visits, when we asked her about change and things like that, she indicated no readiness for change. But she was also a good client. She engaged with regular testing. She used safer injecting practices. She remained negative for HIV and hepatitis C, was tested frequently. But then on her 60th visit, she indicated that she was ready for change, and she was ready for change now. We actually were really lucky that we could get her connected with actually John really quickly to get an addiction assessment. And from that, the client could be placed in residential could be placed in residential treatment. On her 61st visit, she reported that she completed treatment. And she reported that, she had a really positive experience and she had a full plan for what her life was gonna look like in Grand Forks in the short term and in the long term. So we're very happy for her. Unfortunately, on her 62nd visit, she had a return to use. She had a challenging social situation she ended up with that she didn't have the coping skills to overcome, but so she did return to use. She was not particularly happy about being in that situation, but she was also very much ready for change because she had that buildup of skills from the from her recent treatment visit. And then on her 63rd visit, she reported that she reduced her use back to near zero. And so we were working with her on her plan for resuming abstinence. And since then, we haven't seen the client. And so she seemed to have a pretty solid plan. And she was more than willing to come back to us when when she had a return to use. And so we feel pretty confident that she has had a positive outcome. Likewise, next slide. Another gentleman named Chris, again, anonymized picture. He was 41 years old. He was in active use of methamphetamine and opioids since his early 20s. For his first 13 visits, he was really interested in change. Like every time, we were talking about a plan, but he was unhoused and so he had unstable housing, and that really was the thing that kept setting him back. And we actually lost follow-up to him for about 10 months. We didn't see him. But then on his 14th visit, he came to us and he was ready for change. He quit opioid use, but he was still struggling with methamphetamine. And so we got him referred to substance use disorder treatment. On his 15th and 16th visit, he was attending group, and fortunately, he got connected with a job and he got connected with housing. And those were the two things that seemed to always be setting him back, was a lack of job and a lack of housing was really influencing his substance use. And so we worked with him, to help him find places to get the supplies he needed for his new job, for instance. We talked him through challenges with housing. Some of those basic things that we take for granted, being comfortable with negotiating a job and getting ready for a new job and navigating housing. So we worked with him on that. He still came back for a 17th and 18th visit. We were discussing the reducing use. He was still having some trip ups, but he was making progress and he's still very engaged with us. And then by his 19th visit, which was some months ago, he stopped by to return his unused supplies. He was feeling like he had a lot of capital to be able to continue with his plan and abstinence. So he's a really good example. Both of these are good examples of where we kind of followed individuals to assess where they were at, and when they're ready for change, we were there to help them. Next slide. So in closing, this work is a very delicate balance of various approaches. I recognize at face value, something like a service program or a needle program doesn't necessarily jive with common sense. But when you look beyond that and look into harm reduction and the opportunity for us to engage with people and bring about change, we have made a lot of progress. So our program focuses on support without condemnation, acknowledging risks without normalizing, and we don't want anybody to be using drugs in the community, but if they are going to be using them, we want to reduce that risk. Really focusing on person-centered responses, and of course, our goal is still prevention, particularly primary prevention, preventing people from using drugs in the first place. With that, I'll turn it back over to Tess, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions.
Thanks, Michael. So as I'm sure you're aware, substance use disorder is complex. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. If there was, we'd be doing that already. And from over 30 years of national research, participants that engage in syringe exchange programs are 5 times more likely to enter drug treatment programs. And they're also 3 times more likely to reduce or stop injecting drugs. Additionally, highlighting our community partnership with Spectra, they're also more likely to access primary care. And these are really the individuals that can often be hidden in society that we're not normally having contact with. And so, with any big life change, including the one to choose to go to treatment or seek help and be ready for change, includes supports and ensuring that you trust in your supports. And this program allows these individuals seeking these services to create those supports. And so I just want to thank you for your time, and we'd be open to questions now.
Questions by the commission, Commissioner Rosted.
Yeah, I got more than a couple, so I'll just start by saying, thanks for showing up here, thanks for displaying your paraphernalia kit for us all to see. And also thanks to the community members and others that showed up to see this. This is, in my opinion, completely abhorrent. To me, this is nothing but propagating and allowing for, and in some cases even condoning intravenous drug use in this community. I can't see it any other way. The way I justified it in my own knuckle dragging head when I first heard about this was I thought somebody would bring in 6 heroin needles and you give them 6 back. And then that'd be 6 needles that wouldn't be on the greenway for somebody's kid or my own kid or whatever to step on and drive into their foot or whatever. But in fact, what you're doing is quite the opposite. You're giving out more than you're taking in. So you're actually making that worse. I asked, are either of you parents?
Yes, I am.
If say your child is an 18-year-old man or their daughter or woman, would you provide this kit to them? No questions asked.
It would be a very tough situation to be in, but if they were in that situation, I would want them to have the least reduced or the least risk possible, because I'd want to still see them coming home every day and I would want them in a casket.
Would you rather have them have hepatitis, which you said yourself is quite curable now, or be lifelong addicted to heroin or opioids? And likely something that's probably laced with something else that we don't even know about yet. Fentanyl is the one we know about, we can test for that. But we all know that there's gonna be bigger and better coming down the road. And so, I mean, to me, that choice is obvious, hepatitis all day long. You could give me a lifelong opioid addiction or hepatitis, I'll take hepatitis. Throw it in my Halloween bag. I mean, to me, this is just so nonsensical, I can't wrap my brain around it, and it's why, and again, I do appreciate you showing up here, and my assumption is you knew it wouldn't be easy. But I think these are the questions that the people, the community deserve answered. I mean, I had no idea that this is what this kit contained and what was actually being done until I just happened to flip on a city council meeting because I was bored with it. Thank goodness it was, because there was a parental advisory prior to a city council meeting. Did that strike you as wrong?
That was asked for by a councilman.
But it shouldn't be needed. I mean, this is a how-to kit. This is everything except for the drugs. I'm not even sure why we're stopping with this. Why not just provide them with the heroin as well, or the methamphetamine? I don't understand how anyone can sleep at night knowing that they're giving these things out and then giving out more needles than they're taking in, so that somebody could be sitting with a friend who had never tried drugs before and say, hey, you know what, I got all kinds of extra equipment here, you can try this out. And there's no data to support the fact that it's confidential, so to speak, so there's no data to support the fact that it's effective. Except for, you know, you're dropping of hepatitis C in that one slide you showed. But you also said that hepatitis C is much more curable. So do we know it's because of a needle exchange program, or is it just because medical advances have helped out hepatitis C? And I don't believe we've provided with that information. So my goodness, I'll let you respond. I blather on for quite a bit there.
So focusing on your last comment on hepatitis C, and then you can work back and you can provide any other questions that you had. The state went through and was working on their hepatitis C elimination plan recently. And we were trying to come up, and I sat on that task force.
Wouldn't a heroin elimination plan be better than a hepatitis C elimination plan? Because hepatitis C can be, you can get that through, you know, unsafe sex, things like that. I think the purpose of this and this whole thing is that there's a clear drug problem in the whole country, which is only going to be exacerbated as time goes on. But I don't know that I don't know that there's too many people pounding their fists on the table saying we've got to eliminate hepatitis C out of our community. I think it's more than drugs, because they don't want their kids or their grandkids involved in it. And the more of this crap that exists out there, the more paraphernalia that our tax dollars are going to hand out, the more opportunity there's going to be for new users. I get where you're coming from. I see the harm reduction. I understand what you're saying. I just could not disagree more.
Well, just as an opportunity to finish my piece on our hepatitis side. So hepatitis C, the costs of that are not borne here. They're borne in the costs that Medicaid is paying on, on a monthly basis to not just pay for hepatitis C treatment for the people that are indicated, but also for the other effects that come from hepatitis C. So paying for the, liver failure treatment, the cirrhosis treatment, the medical treatment of those diseases that happen because of that. And that you aren't gonna see and say, you aren't gonna necessarily draw that line back and forth.
But in all fairness, Tylenol, Advil, alcohol, all those substances could also lead to the exact same problem. But well, I guess I will leave alcohol out of it, but Tylenol, Advil, things, of that nature don't lead to a lifelong addiction at the same rate as what we're propagating here.
And our goal is not to, put people in a, make people use drugs or anything like that. Our goal is to reduce use. And
Reducing use by giving out more needles than you bring in, reducing use?
And people who engage in programs like this are 3 times more likely to actually reduce their use.
How likely are they in the first place? Because 3 times 0 is still 0.
Well, then they don't need our program, and we're serving a very small population with a very high need. And it is a challenging population, and there are tough days in doing this work. But at the end of the day, we are focused on those 3 goals, and we are seeing those, positive indicators based off of those goals.
You don't have data to support it.
Commissioner Rupp said, the data we rely on is national data where there's larger populations that can be studied versus our local microcosm.
So at national level, they are not confidential, but just here we are.
So yes, there's research programs from SSPs. They started in the 90s. So we've had 30 years of research of outcomes of certain service programs. And so that's what the data we rely on. Our intent is not to create our own research study here. We don't have the funding. We're not looking to move through all those items. The intent of the certain service program is to reduce barriers. And so by obtaining that data, we have to ask questions to these individuals that could pose as a barrier to the goals of the program.
So I guess another follow-up question, are there items that have been offered in the past that are not currently on that table? Because I've got a picture on my phone, there are a few things missing. So in preparation of this meeting, where there's some items removed off of the list.
So to answer that question, twofold, yes. So the items provided here would be a typical, the ask was for what a kit would look like, and so I interpreted that as what we would reasonably expect to give to a person.
So there's more.
There's other items that we do provide to individuals. Some of those we did, after hearing feedback from the council and from the Board of Health, we opted to remove those items, particularly needleless syringes.
What's a needleless syringe for?
So a needleless syringe would be for alternative types of use or measurement, so that would be either oral or rectal use. And then large quantity or large
That'd be the one that
volume.
was labeled bump.
Yeah, that would be, what that is. And the logic behind that was, we went back to our first goal of the program is to reduce the incidence of HIV and hepatitis C related to injection drug use. And based off of that feedback, we had to fall back on that, and so we eliminated anything related to, alternatives that might be less risky for individuals, such as rectal administration, for instance.
So not seeing the dental downs either on that table.
Yeah, so those are actually something that we hardly ever give out anyway. And so in response to that, those concerns. It's not something that we gave out a lot of, so it didn't really impact our participants widely, so we did opt to hold those. And then we, had some,
In the last couple of
straws,
weeks,
yeah. Yeah, in response to the feedback that we got, so.
and the dental dams are for oral sex.
Yeah, that's what it would be for, and those are things that that again, we get from the state as part of, like family planning type grants, Title 10 program grants. And
I have family around protected oral sex, that makes absolutely no sense, but continue.
well, those, they also are a risk reduction for, sexually transmitted diseases, the goal of that. And those programs, we've been getting funds from those programs again for probably 40 years. And so we just were using this as another touch point. They like when we provide, all those options, and so we were providing them. And since it seemed to be a major concern, we opted to just pull that item. Likewise, we pulled, our measuring straws as well.
So I understand that you answer to the city and not us, so again, I appreciate you coming. I'm going to make a motion that we send a letter to the city and to the media that as a county board, we don't approve of this going forward, and I beg for a second on this because I think most people in this room have children, and it would be your worst nightmare to find out that they had become addicted to a heroin or a methamphetamine or fentanyl or something of that nature. And maybe we can, as a board, the county commission board, maybe we can introduce something to the city that will urge them as a city council to go ahead and eliminate this program. So I'll wait for a second.
I've got a comment though, too. I spent 48 years in law enforcement, 9 years in Minnesota, 39 here. I did McGruff and Take a Bite Out of Crime Dog, talk to the kids about say no to drugs. Commissioner Rusted was in one of my classes at Kelly Elementary. Some of the people sitting in this crowd, I talked about saying no to drugs. And I think this is something that totally kicks me in the teeth for what I've been teaching in the school all those years. I got a real problem with it. The second is motion.
So is your motion to suggest?
Suggest to the.
That's,
Okay.
before you get into the discussion, would you, where do these programs come from? The state and the federal government, other counties? What's the situation in North Dakota with this type of program across the state?
Chair Engen, there's currently 5 operating certain service programs in North Dakota. Grand Forks, Fargo, Valley City, Mandan, and Minot. And then there's a couple more that are kind of in the pipeline. We're looking at the feasibility of it. The program, our program is authorized by state law. So we had to go through a process to get authorized, which included coming to the commission in 2019 when we were originally located in this building and we've since moved. And then that also sets out the rules on, the information that we ask, the supplies that we, that we are suggested to give, things like that. So we do have those guidelines, and then it's funded through the state opioid response grant. So the same funds that help, bring more treatment resources to the community, including adding, going from 0 addiction counselor to expect to help our programs located to now having 3 there. And peer support, and we're looking at a second peer support. That's the same one that's providing the funding for the staffing for this program, aside from those supplies that we have to private funds.
Are there any public health departments, whether they're cities in North Dakota or city counties or whatever they are? Ours is different, it's a city department. Sometimes the county department. Have any of those in the state of North Dakota ceased this program in the last several years?
No, every program that is currently, or that has started has been cleaned out for everything.
When we take a look at the healthcare, continuum, we look at access, and so we understand specifically in our region that we have access issues to behavioral health. As well as to treatment resources, and in talking with, the state funders, they, feel that certain service programs are an avenue to those treatment programs, and so, by the local legislators saying no to this program, that's essentially cutting off an avenue to those treatment programs. And so state funders would be less likely to invest in our community, to establish, or enhance, access to treatment facilities, and that would be a concern, if this program was go away.
The state doesn't fund the injectables.
Correct,
The state funds all the processes to get them some help.
correct, yes.
We're pushing injectables. My son or daughter steps on a needle out there by the river,
Sir,
got a problem.
we're at the point of a motion and discussion on the motion. I don't think we can start opening it up to questions from the audience because we don't have any authority to do anything. First place.
Budget.
So you do, you pay part of the budget, you vote on a budget and you give that budget to the city. And it says right in your agreement that you can choose that, whatever budget you want. You can set the budget, sir.
I couldn't hear what you said. I don't know.
Mr. Carey, he mentioned that, we have, a budget authority over the county health, that's our means of leverage.
That our budget authority for Grand Forks County goes to Grand Forks County Services. Correct?
So yes, we serve the county, we serve the city as well as the county, and so, because some of those programs and services, expand outside the city, that's what the city funds would be utilized, to support.
Well, we have very little authority over what they do, but I think we exert at least our influence, so to speak, over the city and urge them to end this program. And that's kind of the genesis of my motion. So we just send a message to the city that this isn't Grand Forks. This is not Grand Forks or Grand Forks County. It just is. I'm sorry, I was born and raised here. This is what we used to, and Mr. Ross used to bang against, is the use of this stuff in our community. And to me, this is nothing but endorsing and assisting. To me, it's insanity. So I laid out the motion, Mr. Ross seconded.
Any further discussion? Mr. Peach?
I wish if we had a letter, we had a rationale or not a rationale. We had some type of suggestion beyond.
So the problem with that is, Senator Meyer provided me, he's in the audience, I appreciate him for showing up. He provided me with the legislation that passed, I think it was the session before last, on this exchange program. And there was 4 members from Grand Forks thankfully voted against it. I forget the number, I don't have it in front of me right now, but everything they're doing is above board. And so if we allow for them to just dial it back some, to me, that also allows for them to creep it back up to this or worse. And so I would like the city that on our suggestion to them to go ahead and just eliminate this. Let's go back to actually trying to create people that are healthy rather than encouraging their intravenous drug use and supplying needles for little kids to step on in playgrounds and things like that. Because if I know one thing about intravenous drug users, it's they don't really care where they do their business. As a downtown building owner, I've got people defecating in my flower plants. It's not when you're that far gone. Properly disposing of needles, probably a bit of an afterthought. And so I think that maybe going back to the shadows might not be such a bad thing.
Commissioner Hagan, have you got any comments?
I had two quick comments or questions and a comment. Do you have data that shows how many people have started using your program and then stopped using drugs down the road?
Commissioner Hagan, I guess it's easiest to see you this way. So Commissioner Hagan, the way that we, state law requires us to operate is that we operate as an anonymous program. And so we can, we can verify someone's identification, for instance, to verify that they're over the age of 18. But we can't collect that information. We can't collect that, information and do follow-up. Plus, as was alluded to earlier from the EDC, providing long-term follow-up to individuals is a very, very costly endeavor. And so we have to rely on people being willing to come back to us and share that information. It would be nearly impossible for us to provide that long-term information for everybody that we serve.
Okay.
But likewise, we see a really good turnover on the number of people in the program. So an individual coming to us on day one isn't necessarily going to be the individual that's going to be here in 4 years later. We see a fair amount of turnover. A lot of people only come a single time, for instance.
Okay. And then do you track the use of the naloxone that you hand out? Like people say, you've handed out 100, what is it, spray, nasal spray or something, and 50 of them have been used. Does that make sense? Like, do you track like people who are using it? Because I know that you said there's been a reduction in overdoses and gone to the ER, but are they just at home? They're, buddies ODing and they can just use the naloxone. So
Commissioner Hagan, we do have participant reported overdose reversals. So for that, we always ask on every visit, have you reversed any overdoses, been around any overdoses? And so for that, we had 95 reported last year as reversals. So we gave out 1,000 doses. Each kid has 2 doses, so that's about 500 kids. So about about 20% of those kits were being used. In response to, if we're preventing people from the emergency department, yes, we are preventing people from going to the emergency department because there's not that much that happens after an overdose in the emergency department that isn't necessarily going to change anything in that moment. That's another very difficult place for change to happen. We still train people to call 911 when they reverse an overdose, and we have reports from people that they do that. So that, we don't tell people to just keep this and not call 911. We still teach that they should call 911 for every overdose.
okay. Yeah, those were my 2 questions. My biggest concern is the amount of needles that we're giving out. That just, with my young children, if heaven forbid, again, as Mr. Rusted had said, what if they find one and now there's you take in 20 and now you get 30? Well, who knows where those needles go? And the other concern is not knowing how many people this is helping. Maybe it's perpetuating the problem and we don't know it. It's helping with the hepatitis reduction, but how many more drug addicts has it made? And maybe it's not, maybe it's reducing it. But for me to say like, yes, this is something I can stand behind. I have a family member who passed away from a fentanyl overdose. Like it's personal to me. Like this, if this is not showing that it's helping people, how can I support it? So.
In response to that, I have kids too. I share the same concerns, but individuals or communities that have syringe service programs are less likely to have publicly discarded sharps than communities that are without them. I certainly do not, I use that as an opportunity with every person that we see to not provide syringe litter into the community or to not dispose of them. And what it does provide for us is a disposal site for them and a safe way for people to dispose them, because they aren't going to pick up a paracharge because they have a sharps container full of syringes from our program and they're coming to see us. They aren't going to get a paraphernalia charge, potentially risk a felony or something like that, to do the right thing and dispose of them correctly. So that is an advantage of our program. We have got back over 80% of our syringes that we've given out. Others are lost to individuals have syringes on them at any given time. Some people dispose of them and they don't tell us about them in like our outdoor sharps container, for instance. Some of them are confiscated by police. And then, likewise, we see a really high return rate compared to, peer programs and things like that.
Thank you.
Well, my comment on this is we've now known about this issue as a commission for 45 minutes to an hour. We didn't have any documents ahead of time. We don't have. In my career as a lawyer, there's always more information you need. You need to look both sides of an issue. And we are not, in my view, we're not at a point where we can tell the city what they should be doing unless we have more information to see what's happening in other parts of the country, the rest of the state, and so on. I'm as against illegal drug use as anyone. I was a prosecutor in the Air Force, and we stomped it very hard. That doesn't necessarily help solve the problem. These programs have been around for a number of years, so I don't feel comfortable telling the city, this is what you should do without further discussion about it. Maybe we should talk about it in committee and get other viewpoints. We should have medical people from maybe Ulster or other places talking to us too. So I'm not ready to tell the city what to do. We have a motion on the floor, we'll have a vote on it, and then we'll have to decide how to approach it if the motion passes. But that's my viewpoint on it. I don't think we're really ready to answer this question in a.
Commissioner Reagan, it could be a recommendation to the city. This is what we recommend.
But yeah, do you have enough information to recommend that these programs are not doing any
But
good?
they can't tell you how many people it's helped either. So,
Well,
yeah.
it's not just Grand Forks,
yeah.
it's the rest of the state.
Well, I just have a hard time with it. I mean, I spent a number of years dealing with this Say No to Drug program. And I got a real problem with this. I really do. And I'm not happy about it. When I found out about it, I was not happy.
Do you really think, though, that just saying no, it's sort of like telling young people, wait till you're married before you have sex, okay? That isn't gonna always work all the time, abstinence. In this situation, I don't know enough about addiction, except I know that I've known some people who were addicted, and boy, it's not easy. Whether it's cigarettes or whether it's other things. So personally, I don't have enough information to tell the city, we think you should drop this program. That's all.
Okay, well, I just know using drugs is against the law.
Of course it is.
And you break the law. You pay the consequences, but you don't give them a Band-Aid to fix it. So.
The city.
That's my opinion.
Health department they've been working, well, this was just talked about at the city, apparently. I'd like to know what the city people think about it. There are some who voted for and against the program, I guess. And I don't decide things on the spur of the moment, for or against. I like to get facts. And that's just where I personally sit. Okay. So. We have a motion on the floor to send a letter to the city. I'd like to see the language of that before we. I think our motion should be, or the way we should approach it if it passes, is to have a draft of the letter prepared by whoever wants to assume the responsibility, and then bring it back to the commission to vote on the language. So.
Well, I don't know that the letter language, I mean, it could be 3 simple sentences. That, we voted as a board to discourage you from continuing the needle program. Maybe that's just 1 sentence. It's just, we gotta overthink it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we don't have to overthink it, but we have to think about it. So.
Okay, then
We'll have to decide how to go about it.
I'll amend my motion as long as Commissioner Ross is okay with still keeping the second on the amendment. I'll amend it to say, we as a county commission highly encourage City Grand Forks to vote to discontinue the needle exchange program. Period.
All right, any further discussion by any commission member? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Hagan, how did you vote?
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
I will vote nay, because I don't think I have enough information, but the motion passed.
thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Is there an opportunity to say anything? They've already passed it, so.
No. It's done.
Good to give a shit.
Yeah, all right. We get on. All right, we'll move on to the next, the next item on the agenda is the, market brand.
They would have all been. Just trying to not send them there and stay there.
And based on the scrap.
And I are not. Okay, well, I'm. I don't know if people look, maybe not.
Two bright eyes.
So late.
Think about it.
For you suggested to me, something.
I was just gonna shut the door if there's. Yeah, I know. I got the door, sir. Thank you.
Let's shut it.
It's not a policy, right?
No. Back, oh,
You went to the restaurant. Tell me right back.
oh, you wanted up. That's your message. With much of Russ, we can.
I do not always be careful.
This one.
Oh. We'll wait for the couple. And moving on to the parking ramp, in discussion with the board about the complexities of the estimates and costs of the parking ramp. And I think we should move this to the Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee, where we can spend an hour on it if we want to, and I think it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
So seeing no objection, we will do that. What about timing for that? I think we would want it after the 25th, because Ms. Nelson will be gone a period of time. And I know she'd love to be here for it.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, we'd love to have her be here for it. So, any suggestions on?
Well, if it would be after the 25th, I would suggest that we hold it, you're talking February.
Well, we have a commission on the 6th.
I would suggest prior to the 6th,
agree.
as the second commission meeting is the Human Services Zone Committee every second, Tuesday or second meeting of the month. So doing it on the 6th would not.
I think we should do it prior to the 6th.
Yeah,
It's a
prior.
special meeting and we have to come together another time. But is there any objection to doing it on a different date than the
No.
sixth itself? So let's see. How about Tuesday, January 30th is
I'm in surgery all day that day.
oh, that's the. You don't want to zoom in from your. The day before, 29th, possibly?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Anybody, Mr. Hagan, what would the 29th for you work? And what time of day is helpful?
Anytime between like noon and 2 works good for me on that day.
How does that work for everybody else?
Yeah, it's fine.
Suitable?
Yeah.
Cindy?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's, maybe we should start at 12:30 and give us ourselves an hour to an hour and a half. That's work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll set that committee meeting at 12:30 on
January 29th.
January 29th. Okay. And yeah, it's a big topic and we need to spend some time on it.
12:30 to 2.
Well, 12:30, 1:30. It's 2 o'clock is where she has to be somewhere. We'll stop it
Okay.
ahead, in time.
We'll just ramp it up.
Yes. We're just sort of there. Very good, Bob. All right, we'll move on to the next, subject. On the engineer, you've been sitting there patiently.
No problem.
We've been waiting for the excitement that you'll bring us.
Yeah, well, I really don't think mine is controversial as the previous topics, I hope not anyway. I don't wanna make light of that, but, one quick little tidbit is, Sheriff Schneider and I were asked to partake in a panel of this Vision Zero conference the first week of March. So we'll be out there for that. Don't know exactly what it all pertains, but we're part of a panel to discuss our experiences with the Vision Zero program. First item of consideration is contract SD 1800-023, so that's our federal aid bill and overlay project. We've been planning for a while. Environmental documents, final plans estimates were submitted a few months ago that are set to bid in approximately 1 month, here February approaching. And included for consideration is the contract with the DOT for that project. That's cost participation, which is an 80-20 split. And construction and maintenance agreement. My opinion, this is a standard DOT agreement. I believe Ms. Swanson has reviewed it, certainly don't wanna, okay, do not yes. And hope it was okay, correct? Okay. And with that, I would ask for approval for. I had plenty of time to prepare and. Chairman's signature, state's attorney's signature, and auditor's signature on it. I'll make that motion.
Second.
By Commissioner Rusted, second by Commissioner Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Moving a roll call vote, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
Next one,
Next contract for consideration, BRP 1800-022. This is for the new bridge on County Road 5. That's going to be bid here in February as well too. So the contract amendment, this is a contract amendment, it's not the original contract that was signed earlier. So this is great news. Okay, so when we originally got this grant, it was for $1,250,000, 100% paid of the project. Anything above that would be locally paid. Now this is a grant application that I submitted on behalf of the county. This was all done right in the middle of COVID before inflation really kicked in. Cost estimates have gone up, plus the project has, the bridge is a little bit bigger than we initially scoped due to hydraulic reasons and soil conditions. So the current cost estimate is substantially higher. We are at about $2.5 million. The great news is the DOT has upped the 1,250,000 grant to 2 million. And then instead of the remainder being 100% local, they're using an 80-20 split on the local share. This is wonderful news for us and better than before, really. But they would like contract signature on that as well too. To agree to those funding terms.
Happily make that motion.
I'll second that.
Oh,
That's what I made.
already. Any further discuss, any questions by the commissioner for discussion? You have a motion and
Thanks
a
for finding
second.
more ways to save money, Nick, appreciate it.
That had nothing to do with me.
Speaking my language.
Yeah.
All right, assuming a roll call vote on this issue, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
next one,
And, okay, the next one is a request to do a chip seal project this summer. We're requesting, the highway department is gonna request to do 33 miles of chip seal on the roads that were, old mill and overlaid the last few years. This project is not specifically budgeted, however, we do have funds available through 1505 and Prairie Dog that could allocate for this. We're looking at the roads that were mill and overlaid between Inkster and Porterville Dam, so the portions of County 1, 10, and 19. Also County 6 west of Kempton, County 12 that we did, those first roads we did 2 years ago. Then last year we did County 12 by Northwood, and also 2 years ago we did County 17, which is Columbia Road, south of Grand Forks. If you're wondering what a chip seal is, it's common practice in our industry is layers of the oil, put the rock on top. It's a protect the pavement from the effects of sun and weather, increase skid resistance, fill small cracks. That is my request.
all right, any first questions?
Make a motion to approve that.
I'll second that one. Mr. Ross, second by Commissioner Rosted. Anything other discussion? And assuming a roll call vote, all in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Yeah.
Thank you.
Quick question on that, the Prairie Dog Fund, doesn't. That's not something that you have to budget for specifically, you can take from those funds for these purposes. As long as it lasts, is that how it works?
Correct, there is no sunset on spending the money, it's at this board's discretion when the funds go. However, the funds have to be used, I verbalize it as projects.
Yeah.
We can't pay salaries, buy fuel,
Right.
that kind of stuff, so pavement, gravel, culverts, bridges,
Okay,
all of it. Projects, yeah.
what I thought. Next project?
So our one significant equipment purchase for the year was, we were hoping to buy a new snowplow truck. So we opened bids last week and we only had one bid. And that was from Argo Truck Center for a Mack truck. The bid came in fine. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with the truck or anything, and the price was right about where we were thinking it was gonna be. And we were appropriately budgeted for it. However, the truck isn't available until April of 25. Which is longer than we were hoping for, but that's just where the industry is. So the long-term plan of the department would be is buy one truck this year and one truck next year. My proposal is to reject this bid and re-advertise for 2 trucks. So we would hopefully sign an agreement next month for 2 trucks that should be delivered in 2025. And we take the money from this year, deliberately save it, deliberately carry it over to 25, add money in 25, so we have enough money to buy 2 25. Even if we wanted a truck in 24, it's not possible. We visited with a number of different vendors, and some of them didn't bid because they can't, like International, which we bought a lot of chassis off of International. Well, since I mentioned, they've all been International. They have 0 availability in 24. Couldn't even get us a price for a 25. Didn't know if he could get us a truck in 25. wouldn't even have a price until the fall of 24. So you couldn't even order one now anyway. There was some other issues with Western Star and Freightliner that if we re-advertise, they said they might bid again if they knew they could deliver in 25. One of them, I had in the proposal that county's preference is to take ownership in 24. Well, when they saw that, he's like, well, I can't deliver in 24, so I'm not gonna bid. That was one comment. Another one had some pricing issues and didn't bid, and said if we re-advertise, they'd be more interested, so. My proposal is, and in a lot of conversations with Ms. Wamstead on the legalities of doing this or what we could do. I made a suggestion like, well, what if we just, RDO was the only sole bidder, what if we just said, hey, give us 2 trucks? Well, we didn't advertise for 2, so it's not a fair warning to the public. Plus, by delaying it by a month, which is what this, if we rebid, would do. Let's say get it in April of 25, maybe we get it in May or June of 25.
Would you get it for the same price if you rebid it?
Wait, we don't know. We don't know. I suppose prices could change in the next month.
Yeah.
Possible. It seems like the industry has stabilized. So I don't anticipate a big increase, but it is a risk. But the nice thing about ordering 2, and historically our department has done that, is then we have 2 that are identical, so you have less training needs and you have easier parts inventory. All of our active plow trucks are in increments of 2. Not that it has to be like that, but that was just the way it was done, and we keep our trucks for quite a while, so that would be a tertiary benefit of it, of doing that, so.
Any other questions?
Makes sense to me. I'll move that Nick can do what he wants with his plow trucks.
Mr. Rusted,
Rebid them.
Yeah, reject this bid.
I'll second that.
right. Can we roll call vote, all in favor of the motion
Mr.
to?
Chair,
What?
should we perhaps have some clarity on the motion, that it is a motion?
That was a little rough.
Reject.
We're starting over.
I'm just going to restate it, but
Yeah, you got to
reject
reject that.
the prior bids. Re-advertise the 2 plow trucks, knowing that they couldn't be delivered till 25. You would save the funding from this, that you were gonna spend in this year, and add to it next year and buy 2 trucks that way, is that correct?
Advertise.
Spot on.
All right.
That's my motion. Is that what you said?
I agree with that.
Is that how I worded it?
Yeah.
And Commissioner Hagan, you might as well agree ahead of time too before we vote, but if you wanna wait, we'll just have a vote right now. All in favor?
She's getting 2 votes right now. She got a vote.
It doesn't matter what I say. All right. Fantastic. Okay. I think it's a unanimous vote, aye, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, put it or aye, so, all right, that one's done. You got one more?
I do have one more. And this one's not quite as fun, but 2 weeks ago, DOT guys from the Grand Forks District Office came over and had a meeting with myself and said, hey, we'd like you guys not to store county salt in the state shed, which we've done for decades. And the district engineer, Mr. Hippolyte, did send me an email, which is included in the packet with the reasoning why. And then claim that it stems from, when a truck shows up. Is there what controls are in place to make sure that county salt's delivered to the county side of the building, state salt's delivered to the state side of the building? It is a little extra headache, I guess, so to speak. I always thought it was a minor inconvenience, but it's a minor inconvenience for the state guys because it's their shed and they're unloading the equipment or unloading the salt, but there is no formal agreement that I'm aware of. When I started a number of years ago, when I remember asking Gerald Cedar, veteran superintendent, I said, well, how does that work? Well, there was discussion many decades ago, nobody knows when this really started, that, or nobody around anymore that remembers, to try and have government entities work together to save money on whatever infrastructure they could share, and that was one thing that was identified was state must have built a shed that was bigger than they needed, and County has the east side and the state has the west side of it. That's the way it's always been. Well. They would like their building full use. For auditing purposes, making sure, what's theirs is theirs, and ours is ours, plus they want. They want more storage capacity as well too, so. He did say, no, yeah, if it takes a year or two to figure this out, that's fine, but we wanna work toward. County getting its own, so. From our perspective, it's a minor. Inconvenience, to load our trucks, we gotta go out of the yard, drive a block north, drive in the shed. We hop in their loader, load up, if their loader's out there, we bring our loader over. But. Certainly worth it from our perspective, pay for a building, so I've never brought it up as something that would be worthwhile. Until they ask. So I don't have a formal requested motion. Other than. A visit with the board about what they think. What they think we should do. We do have the money available to do something with this, and it's solely because. We got that legacy fund disbursement. And the rules I'm told from the Association of Counties as to what to follow with that is. What's in administrative code, which is the same code we use for 2150, which is a highway distribution fund. Which is very broad, and. In our 2150 fund, we do everything with it. Pay salaries, we pay the electric bill, we pay for culverts, we buy equipment, we do anything that the highway department needs to function on it. So. To me, I do believe that using money on that, using that money for a new building would be appropriate. Now, when I wrote this write up on. Wednesday, I really shot from the hip on pricing. However, on Thursday, I had quite substantial visit with a vendor that builds. These sheds, and I guess initially we were thinking, well, it's like the city gonna force has where it's. The metal frame with the fabric on top. Just something cheap and functional. The big thing with salt is just keeping it dry. That's what you're after, just keeping it dry year round. I'm really thinking we definitely can do it less than 300. I think we could build a shed closer to 200,000. Based on the scene from them. So with that, I would entertain any questions or thoughts, and
You have to bid that,
yeah, yes, we would,
so you're looking for authorization to get bidding on the shed.
if that's the board's wishes. I would.
I make that motion.
Second.
Right. We have a motion and a second to authorize. Mr. West to obtain bids for this structure. Is there any further discussion or questions for Mr. West? Right here, none. We're assuming a roll call vote, but all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And all we're doing is we'd have to approve bids anyway, so
Correct.
we'll have more information. At the point where you're already to do that.
Would the board desire an update before we bid as to what we are proposing? And my thoughts is just one of those.
Whatever you need, whatever you need, it's your shed.
Well, I think that's good enough. I visited with all the other major, board casts early, City of Grand Forks and DOT guys. And all the counties, they got all kinds of different structures and timber structures and concrete structures, and it's like. You pay for those concrete timber structures, you're paying a lot more. I mean, maybe you get a building that's got more longevity, but boy, you're paying a lot of money for
Whatever,
just keeping salt dry.
whatever it takes to keep your salt dry.
I think that.
Right.
Simple.
I kind of think.
You can do that with gunpowder.
All right, Nick, thanks. Keep your salt dry, buddy.
All right, that's all I have, thank you.
Bring it to us when you have some information, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. County administrator.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, two things for the commission's, one for awareness, one for approval. First one is the AIA document B 105 2017. So what you have in front of you right now is the proposal from JLG. What I'll be asking the board for today is to approve the actual contract between the county and JLG to perform the courthouse and Cobb footprint assessment and asking for chair's signature on the contract so I can send back to JLG. And Ms. Lumstead has reviewed.
Mr. Beach.
I would move approval on that.
Second. Mr. Ross, second. Any questions about that or? You ready to vote? Assuming a roll call vote, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you. Lastly, just an FYI, AE2S did their annual inspection of the grandstands of the Speedway. That has been shared with Mr. Egel on the fair board. He's bringing that to the fair board. They're gonna look for some estimates. And they'll be coming back with some discussions about potential cost sharing between the fair board and the county. So that's just an FYI. And other than that, Mr. Chair, regarding the public safety infrastructure meeting, I will send the commission all the information that I think you'll want to facilitate that discussion. So look for that. I'll come soon. That's all I have.
All right. As long as it. Is there?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I have nothing. Thank you.
Committee report, Mr. Hagan, you been busy?
Yeah, I've been a little busy. Was in and out of the hospital a couple times. But we have this cute little boy here named Kyler, who's getting kind of hungry, but he's making it through his first commission meeting.
All right. Mr. Ross.
just, we have, had our Tuesday morning construction meeting out at the correctional center. Things slowed down a little bit because of the cold, but, next week it's gonna warm up and the concrete's gonna be full. So. Other than that, that's about it.
Mr. Rusted.
I had an update, but Tom Ford just covered it, so.
Oh,
That was on the fair in the grandstands, so.
okay.
I stole your thunder. Apologies.
I know, I haven't talked enough today.
You can still talk for a half hour if you'd like.
We can't.
Mr. Beach.
Today was the Human Service Board meeting. They're doing pretty well on employing individuals they need to employ. And I believe it was right around a little less than 200 children in foster care at this time. And last week was the Airport Authority Board. Nothing really to report there.
All right. And I have nothing to report. So we'll move on to unfinished new business.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I have 4 additional budget amendments for 2023. All of those funds have offsetting. But they were bills that. So I need a motion to approve those 2023 budget amendments.
So move.
Second.
Good. Mr. Ross, motion, Mr. Rusted second. Any further questions? Roll call vote, all in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
Thank you. The next item is the primary residence credit, and if you haven't applied and you own a property in North Dakota and you live in your primary residence, you can apply for up to a $500 credit on your 2024 property taxes, but you have to do it by March 31st. And I'm going to tell you about every meeting until the end of March.
You hunted me a couple times, I did it last evening, it took 5 minutes or less.
Well, good.
It's very easy. I did it too.
Tell everybody you know, it's
Yes.
not an income-based thing, it's just another gift from the legislature, is that what we call it? Or-
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Give my money back as a gift. Okay, this is one.
And,
And the last item I have is the Washington Township Assessing Agreement, and the Tax Equalization Department will take over for Washington Township for their assessing, so I need motion for the chair to sign.
so we have a motion, Mr. Ross, second. Mr. Rusted, second. all in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
And, correspondence, open burning. You got that in there.
Mr. Chairman, member of the commission, that's just informational letter that was written. Someone that was doing open burning for all years. This was.
Quick question from the sheriff. You guys still get issue burning permits when people ask for them, or don't they need to do that on certain days?
Permits don't come through us, Chairman. They go through here. We're getting the same notification letters as you are.
Okay. Yeah, you are involved in burning bans if there's a drought.
Yes, burning bans we would be, not open burning of substances that are prohibited from being burned.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anything else before adjournment?
No, Commissioner Hagan said she would take care of it.
I'd move a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Most like, what,